Hey, it's John Alapic. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the latest edition of Latter Day Albums. Premise of this series is to talk about our Latter Day album in a artist or band's catalog doesn't get enough love or recognition. This is going to be a privilege for me to talk about this album I have owned since it came out when I was 18 years old. This is the Rolling Stones' Steel Wheels. This was released on August 29, 1989, on Rolling Stones Records. It would later be reissued on Virgin Records and Universal Records. This is their 19th release in the United Kingdom and their 21st release in the United States. Now, in the time before this album came out, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, who are original members and their main songwriters, were feuding. They weren't getting along personally, they weren't getting along musically. Mick wanted it to be more contemporary, take the music more into a dance direction. You heard a lot of that on Undercover and Dirty Work, their albums from 1983 and 1986, respectively. He wanted to embrace the new sounds of the 80s. Keith wanted the Rolling Stones to be just a kick-ass rock and roll band. And that was really evident in the solo albums they put out in the interim between Dirty Work and Steel Wheels. You had Mick Jagger's Primitive Cool. I remember hearing that back in the day. It was okay. And you had Keith Richards' Talk is Cheap, which I thought was a very good record. So they came back in 89 with Steel Wheels. They mended fences, I believe, at the 1989 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony. And they went back in the studio. You can really hear a lot of joy within the grooves, a lot of passion. One of my favorite Rolling Stones albums, and not just because it was the first one I bought, which I bought on cassette. Now, I bought this as a new release, probably the week it came out. Back then, I'd run to Joe Nardone's Gallery of Sound in Edwardsville, Pennsylvania, and I'd spend all my money there when I got done paying my room and board at the house that I grew up in. So this is not the original cassette that I bought in 89. I did buy this in 89, but what happened was the original one got eaten up in the little boom box in the kitchen at Jim Dandy's restaurant in Edwardsville, Pennsylvania, where I was a dishwasher at the time. So I remember bitching and pissing and moaning about it, but I went out and bought a new cassette, and this is that case, which has gone through the war. I believe this might have been like a TDK case later on, but here's the original cassette right here. Yeah, here's side one. So, and I doubt this doesn't play very well anymore. I remember playing this really hard, and I bought the CD later. So this was the first cassette that I owned by the Rolling Stones. I bought with my own money, but we heard the Stones a lot in our house when we were growing up because my dad's favorite band was the Rolling Stones, and he had a lot of the original vinyls that came out in the 1960s. So once in a blue moon, he'd bring out those cassettes, and he had cassettes, records, and he would, some of them had scratches in them, but it was a trip down memory lane, and that's how I first heard Get Off of My Cloud and Paint It Black and Satisfaction and all those great songs from the 60s. I heard those before I heard them on the radio a lot in a lot of cases. Although I clearly remember like the 70s and the 80s songs, remember hearing them first on the radio. But the 60s songs, a lot of them was when we were growing up in Corktown, my siblings and I. So this, for my money, is one of the best Stones albums. This is like a top six Rolling Stones album for me. And I'm going to get into my love for this album. But before I do, let me tell you who played on the album. This was produced by Chris Kimsey and the Glimmer Twins, which are Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Let's go into Wikipedia here because it's easier for me to read it from here than to read it on these liner notes on the cassette and CD. We have the incomparable Mick Jagger on lead vocals on 10 songs, backing vocals, guitar, harmonicas, shakers, and keyboards. We have the just as incomparable Keith Richards, the best rhythm guitar player ever lived, in my opinion. On guitars, backing vocals, acoustic guitar, classical guitar, lead vocals on the other two songs, and bicycle spokes. What he's doing there, I have no idea. Ronnie Wood on guitar, bass guitar on a few tracks, acoustic bass, dobro, and backing vocals. Mick, Keith, and Ronnie are with the band to this day. You will hear them very shortly if you haven't checked the songs out already on Spotify. They will be coming out with Foreign Tongues on July 10, 2026. We have Bill Wyman on bass guitar on several songs on this album. I believe this is the last album he played on with the Rolling Stones before he was replaced by Daryl Jones. Yes, that is correct. I just double checked that. And we got Charlie Watts, the late, great Charlie Watts on drums on all songs. As far as the additional musicians, we have Chuck Leavell on organ, piano, keyboards, and Wurlitzer piano. Chuck Leavell has been with the band since 1982, and he is their musical director since then. We have Matt Clifford on electric piano, keyboards, clavinet, harmonium, percussion programming, orchestration, and strings. We have Luis Jardim on percussion. We have Phil Beer on mandolin and fiddle on one song. We have the Kick Horns on brass on three songs. Roddy Lorimer on trumpet. We have the master musicians of Jaguka, led by Bakir Atir Farafina on African Moroccan instruments. And we have Sarah Dash, Lisa Fisher, Bernard Fowler, and Sonia Morgan on backing vocals. Let me tell you about this wonderful album. This album, produced in 1989, has a classicist feel. They were going for a classic Rolling Stones album with that same classic Rolling Stones sound, and they have it here. You don't have gated drums or drum machines or synthesizers on here. This is just a kick-ass rock album, and it has other elements besides rock, but then again, the Stones were always more than the best rock and roll or the greatest rock and roll band in the world. First song is Sad, Sad, Sad. Wicked opener. This brings this album out to begin it, with a bang. The guitars weaving in and out sound very classy. Mick Jagger, charisma personified, on full display on this track. Wonderful vocal. Great bridge on it. We got the backing vocalists adding a lot to the proceedings. You got some horns coming in and out on that third chorus, which worked very, very well. Very rousing, very joyous start to the album. We get into Mixed Emotions on the second song. That is their last top 10 hit here in the United States. Remember the video from back in the day? This was all over radio in the fall of '89. And I believe this hit number 5 on Billboard. Very strong track. It's more mid-tempo, very memorable lyrically, excellent chorus on it. The bridge is very short, but very creative. They took the first line of the chorus and they just sang it in a different key, and it works very, very well as a bridge. I love the fade out on here, where they repeat that first line, "You're not the only one," but they're doing it in another key again. And then you got the ad-libs working as a response to that one line in the fade outs. And it works so well. Next track is Terrifying. Terrifying is all about the groove. We got Charlie's drums kicking in with Keith's guitar, and then the bass kicks in. What a bass line that Bill's laying down on this is. Awesome. Very slinky and sultry to it, as is Mick's vocal. He's not shouting or singing so much. It's no matter what you say, no matter what you do, he's in a lower register. It's very, very cool. We got a lot of different instruments weaving in and out amidst that groove. And that groove doesn't let up the whole song. It is very strong. The trumpet solo on here, I think, really adds a lot to it. You got extra percussion weaving in and out. And it works awesome. Great track. Hold on to your hat. Next track, This is the balls out rocker of the album. It rocks harder than sad, sad, sad. This is very loose and very rocking. It feels like it's gonna fly off your turntable if you're playing it on vinyl. The guitars sound great on here, great interplay, great little leads on here. Mick is on fire with his swagger and charisma on here. It's excellent. Great track. We go into Hearts for Sale, which starts with that guitar rising from the ashes. It's and that becomes the great hook on the album. This is more of a mid-tempo monster. This is really led by Mick's vocal on here, very passionate vocal, and that wonderful guitar line, wonderful hook to it. Nice bridge on this, which takes you into the solo, which is very economical. We got a great fade out on this one. Mick ad-libbing his butt off while you got some harmonica coming in and some great interplay. Excellent track. Hearts for Sale. This is more of a country tune. You got the mandolin and the fiddle playing an integral part on here. Nice harmonies on it. And the thing with the Stones is they always had songs like this on their albums, where particularly if you go back to like Beggar's Banquet and right through the 70s, they always have some songs with kind of a more of a like a backwoods feel to it, more of a country feel. They always did those very well. They always did reggae songs very well too, but we don't have any reggae on this one. Heart, but Blinded by Love is very, very cool. That would end side one of the album. Side two starts with Rock in a Hard Place to Me, the last knockout song they did. Guitars on here, the main riff is an excellent hook. The groove on here is very strong from Charlie and Bill. The bass lines are very, very funky on here. This is like the great rock song that you can dance to that works very, very well. And the horns on this, the backing vocals, they all add so much. This song is like full of intangibles. And it still sounds exciting today. You got a nice stop start rhythm after the last chorus. You have a breakdown with just the drums coming in and then the bass come popping in and out. Sounds really cool. So funky. At the end, it really rocks really hard. You got a nice solo at the end during the fade out while the backing vocalists are just singing rock in a hard place. And then another key change. So many intangibles on this album. It is fantastic. Next, we have Can't Be Seen. This is the first of two songs that Keith Richards sings on here. This is more melodic and more mid-tempo. Doesn't really change up much. Even his vocal on here, he's, kind of staying in that same lane. Again, little intangibles on here because you have the call and response coming in the verses, but it's not going in with the vocals on every line. It's coming in on that third line of the verse, which works very well. We stay in that same vein, but the vocal hooks, the little intangibles, I think is what really works on this song. Again, great guitar interplay on it. Very good track. Next is Almost to You Side, which was a single. Third single off the album here in the United States. It hit number 50. And this is the ballad of the album, which is very elegant. Great vocal from Mick on here. There's some little nuances to this song. Some of the harmonies recall their 70s work, the way that they're singing. You have a nice breakdown where they're just going, ooh, 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 and they're all harmonizing on that. That sounds very, very cool. That's a nice hook on the song. The guitar playing's very cool. You got a lot of acoustic on here. Very, very strong. One of my favorite songs by the Rolling Stones, as a matter of fact, is excellent. One of their best ballads. And although it's it's got more going on with it, like something like Angie, which is very sad and very dramatic. This doesn't have drama to it. It's just a very good ballad, but it's like a mid-tempo ballad, which is very cool. Then we get Continental Drift, which is where we have the African influence on here. I listen to this song, it's like an update on some of the sounds they were experimenting on Flowers and their Satanic Majesty's Request. This is an outlier, but I've always enjoyed this song. And it's very, very different from what else is on the album, but it does have this hypnotic and addictive feel to it. And the African Moroccan instruments really add a lot to it. It is a very cool track. It does sound more like African music than rock music, but I don't think it takes anything away from it. I think it fits in with the eclectic feel you have on here. Then we get Break the Spell. Now, this has a feel like late, maybe mid to late 60s, maybe a little bit early 70s Stones. It has a blues feel, but it's not a 12-bar blues. But it's like very loose. And you got great harmonica on here from Mick, and it just got a great groove to it. Again, a song you can dance to, but it has that old school feel to it that the Stones did really well. The Stones started out as a blues band, and this is like a callback to that era, and it works very well. Last track is Keith Richards singing Slipping Away, which is another, a near ballad on this one. I think it's an excellent closer. I saw them do this in 2019 when I got to see them live. And this is a very underrated song in the Keith Richards canon because he always sang a song or two on all these albums. And it just has more of a reflective feel. It feels like a finale the way it plays out. It's a little more somber, but it's not like a sad song at all. It has that kind of ending feel like there's like a lot of highs on this album, a lot of joys, and this feels like something that's more reflective, but it's not slow. It's just a very well crafted tune to end this wonderful album. The Rolling Stones, Steel Wheels from 1989. My opinion, their last great album, although I do like the albums after this. And, 37 years since this album, Foreign Tongues, which is going to come out shortly, is only the sixth album they've done since this album. And of those six albums, one of them was a blues covers album, Blue and Lonesome. And the last two albums, Hackneyed Diamonds and Foreign Tongues, Andrew Watt, I believe, has a lot to do with the recording and the songwriting on there. So, what do you think of the Rolling Stones music? In particular, what do you think of Steel Wheels? Do you believe this is their last great album? Do you believe this should be ranked higher when a lot of us talk about our favorite Rolling Stones albums? We love to talk about the albums from 68 through 72, start with Beggar's Banquet, ending with Exile on Main Street. I like this more than Exile on Main Street. I know that's become the great album by the Stones through history, but I just think this is a stronger release, a tighter release. This was 12 songs, 53 minutes. By this point, we're getting a little longer with CDs, but here they still kind of kept it pretty tight. Please let me know in the comments what you think of Rolling Stones, Steel Wheels, and have you seen them live? What are your favorite albums by them? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you soon.